Morning. It's Amber, Blooms on the Hill, and I'm in the messy school room, which is also my drying flower room, and the school table, which the kids don't do their schoolwork on. They use the kitchen, even though we built this specifically for them, is where I do, it's like my wrapping station now. I've got my plastic sleeves, bits and bobs. It's a huge mess, I know. But it did look tidy. Anyway, thought I'd just do a bit of a quickie on dried flowers. So as you can see, I've been collecting quite a few things. This season I've grown a lot more for drying, and the reason being because I was going to have material for a shop up in Moving North for the winter. Decided not to have my flowers in there anymore, because they're not sort of selling. So, and I think the reason being is because of the type of shop it is. So the way it works is it's a collective. So there's different stall holders, and they all have their own little section, whether it's a shelf or a rack for clothes or whatever it is. And a lot of the other things in there, it's a lot of secondhand goods. So a lot of secondhand clothes and sort of bits and bobs and things. And it's to me, it looks a little bit like an opportunity shop, which I think in America you call it a thrift store, so which is fine. People love those sorts of things. That's not my kind of thing, but I think the type of clientele it gets in, I don't know, it's just not drawing people to come in and see flowers there. So to start with, I sold quite a lot, I think because it was quite new, and also I had Dahlia tubers, and now it's too late to be putting Dahlia tubers in really. But I found that the last little bit, it's dropped away. So sales have dropped away. I talked about this last video, but it doesn't make sense to put flowers somewhere where you're just going to end up bringing them home and throwing them out. That makes zero sense to me. So instead, I'm taking them down to the bakery, and also, you know, I do the odd flower farmer's market, of course, and then there's a florist. And actually I sent out some emails to other florists, and one actually got back to me this week and said, look, you know, send us a price list, and, you know, would you deliver, and all that kind of thing. So it's not a guarantee that they're going to buy flowers off me, but at least it was, you know, a really good, polite reply. So keep your feelers out, I guess. So I've got this dried material, and I decided to take it to the farmer's market on the weekend, because in the past I've taken dried straw flowers and they've always sold. So I used to have a bunch of dried straw flowers for $25, and they would always just, they'd move. And I used to have this string here just full of straw flowers. I used to grow a lot, and every bunch would have 10 stems, and I did up hundreds of bunches over the season, and I sold them all. I did over, you know, I just did. They just went. It was amazing. So I only did 4 bouquets to take to the market on the weekend, and I sold them all. So I'm going to make up more. I need to practice with dried flowers, and I have a few books, and obviously there's, you know, YouTube videos and pictures and things. So I need to do a bit more research into getting my dried flower arrangements nice. They're different to work with. They tend to break. The ones I did on the weekend kind of looked like a truck ran over them, but that's fine. People were happy. But it's more, you know, you can have a bunch of material and then get it home and sort it out to suit yourself. So people just love them. Obviously, they see value for money in something that's just not going to die like a fresh flower. Tips with dried flowers. You do need to, like, if you're buying some for yourself, you do need to keep them away from the light a bit, otherwise they'll fade. So if you're going to keep them away from a window, they of course collect dust. So the tip I have heard from, I can't remember her name, but she's called Botanical Tales, which is tales as in story tales, Tales. She's from the UK. Check out her Instagram. She's got books and everything. She suggests getting your hairdryer on low setting and on cool, and just giving your dried flowers a little hair dry to get the dust off. I think that's a really, really good idea, because if you start touching them, then they can really easily break off, because if they do get brittle over time. And look, they don't last forever. I mean, they say everlasting flowers. Not forever. Like, eventually they, you know, you could get a good however many years out of it, but you know, eventually they may all just crumble into dust. So I thought I'd just quickly show you what I've got dried so far, and then I'll show you how I hang up the other stuff. I picked pretty much all of the status that was good, because you know, I've got stuff that's going over, and this has been great in mixed bouquets because it does fill everything out. So I was very much on the fence, like, oh, do I pick it now? It's still great in mixed bouquets, and the Dahlias are still trying to get going, but it's kind of like, look, I really need to bite the bullet and cut what's there. There's more coming. It does seem to be slightly shorter stems, but I think having some stuff to sell through the winter, unless I sell it all before, but it certainly was another revenue stream on the weekend. If I hadn't have taken it, I would have lost out on the $120 that I made. So I actually had these bunches going for $30 and nobody batted an eyelid at that. So they can see the value, and I think actually that was, again, another good price point. It wasn't too ridiculously expensive, but it was still that little bit more, and they shifted. So the other thing I picked yesterday was these lovely little Scabiosa drumsticks. They're awesome. Showing you those a bit close up. These are fun. The flower itself is a very soft little bluey lavender, very pale, and it looks like a normal Scabiosa. Sort of like a yeah, just a sort of smaller version, but the petals just virtually fall out straight away. So really you only grow them for these. I've got some still left on the plant. I cut as many as I could that had the longest stems possible. The ones that are left have got these tiny little short stems, so I've left them to go to seed. And then there's the status, so I picked that as well. Now I did take to market yesterday the amaranth to see how that would go. This reminds me of Mr. Snuffleupagus from Sesame Street. Every time I look at this, I think of his trunk. And I thought, look, these look great. And they do. They're really striking. But no one bought any. And it was an experiment to take them to see how they go. The amaranth you can dry. So I'm going to hang these up. They're fine. They're still hydrated. They're fine. They look alike. Like, you know, they're fine. So I'm going to hang those up. Never dried it before. So we'll see how that goes. So a quick rip around of what I've got that's dried. There's some poppy seed heads. They're amazing. They get really hard. They've got this lovely golden crown bit on them. More status, some winged everlasting. There's a bit of Persian cress, which I used this when it had its little white flowers on it, and then used it once they turned to seed heads, so the little green seed pods, and now it's all really dry. So I don't know if I'd use much of that when it looks like that, but I've got another bunch of it, but we'll see. Underneath is more status. There's a few straw flowers, which you probably need to pick them. So they've really opened up. They keep opening up. So you probably need to pick them when they're, well, maybe a bit like that. And some of them have been okay, but not too open because they sort of keep opening. There's a little bit of larkspur down there, which I was really surprised about. And there's a bit more up here. I mean, I already knew that you could dry it, and it dried really well, but it surprised me because it's such a delicate flower that it hangs on really well. So that's good, and the colour stays. You can make confetti with it too, so that's good. There's a bit of nigella there. Now, those pods have been picked green. They've got their lovely brown stripes on them. Don't let them go brown out in the garden, because then they'll just fall apart on you, but that's the stage you want. And those are actually dry enough to use. They've kept the green colour. Yeah, really hot. I'm sweating like crazy. That's horrible. I'll come out here neither. It's another warm day. It's muggy. We're supposed to be in for a bit of storm. Looking out the window, it's actually, they're talking severe thunderstorms. It's very still at the moment, that whole calm before the storm thing. So anyway, I'm going, oh no, here's some other dried things. This is hydrangea. My mum did these for me. Gone very yellow. They've been next to the window. And that was from last season. This is millet. We had a big crop of this. This is really cool. My husband brought this home from the other farm, and they were massive. They were so tall. They would have been 6 feet tall. So we cut them down, and then I just let these dry flat. They're really, really interesting. Over here, this is wheat. I've had random bits of wheat just growing here and there in my paddock and my garden, and that's because we feed the chooks feed that's got wheat in it. So that's what's happened there. This is a bit more hydrangea. Some of it's retained a little bit of its blue colour. Once again, my mum did these. She's got a lot of hydrangea plants, and these ones are nice as well. They're a bit different. So they've just been sort of sitting there. They're in the dark in here, in my laundry kind of flower mess area. So they haven't really faded too much other than those ones in the window. But I can use these, and look, they're not in my house because I sort of don't really do dried flowers. Okay, so shiny. Anyway, these have actually been in my house. These are from last year, and they were in my house on my piano because it was sad not having flowers in my house after having a season. So these are actually dahlias I've dried, not all of them, but see, there's a dried. Now, isn't that unusual? I'm not a super fan of things that are dried, but the dahlias are just quite strange. Like, they go really, really different. So, you know, I'm quite happy to use those in arrangements and like that I sell. I'm not attached to these so much. That's another colour of it. So I'm going to dry more dahlias for sure, and then here's some yellow straw flowers. I'd say these are probably the only ones I didn't actually sell. Everything sort of falls apart a little bit. I'll show you the dahlias. This one was Florally Kahuna, which is a pink one with stripes. You can actually see the stripes here. I don't know how well you can see that, but that one's, they're like little works of art. And this one, whether that was a cafe au lait, I think that might have been. So the big ones dry really well. Obviously they shrink right down. There's a yellow one. Look at him. They're quite extraordinary. Now, there's a lady in the UK, you probably all have seen her, she's called Just Dahlias, and then she does a lot of drying. Look at that. Weird, huh? So, yeah. You have to hang them up individually. Check out her Instagram account because she's got the most amazing dried flowers. This one's sort of blown a little bit. But, yeah, they're worth having a go at. But you can try anything. It just depends what it looks like once you do, so whether it's worthwhile. But the lady at Botanical Tales, and I really can't remember her name now, she dries everything. She does tulips and ranunculus and all sorts of things. And some flowers will look the same as what they look like when they're fresh. So obviously, you know, straw flowers look the same, except the dead stem. But dahlias change dramatically, and you know, it just really varies. So they're certainly worth doing as an extra point of sale. So what I'm going to do now is just tie up some other bits that I've got there to hang up to dry, and think about, you know, what else I can pick in the garden, and just test things. So give it a go. It's worth it. Okay, so I'm just clearing a bit of space because some of this stuff up here is dried. So I've taken some down and I'm putting it in. I'll show you in a sec, but back in those tubs. So I've got everything stored standing up. Another way I've read that you can store it, you know, put it in a box, lay it down, tissue paper, somewhere dark. So I do have an area, we call it our larder, and it is dark. It's probably a little, well, it's warm in here too. But really, when drying things, they always say somewhere that is dark, dry, and not hot, so it doesn't go, so your stuff doesn't go brittle. And for me, I've got parts of my house that are kind of damp because it's an older house and we actually need to replace our roof. So there's bits that get a little damp, and the bathroom's a bit of a disaster. So it does seem to affect the rest of the house. Another thing to get to. But this room is like super dry, and also it is warm and it's fairly light, but it does help that my husband did put the trampoline, the bouncy part of the trampoline, it ripped because it, you know, it's just out in the weather and it got old. And he tacked that up there for me, and it's covered the window to keep things a little shaded and cooler in here. So once this room's actually not finished in terms of plastering and architraves and painting and all the rest of the stuff, so no curtains, was something that will happen. But you know, for the moment that really works. That's all good, all fine. So I find that, look, this situation is working for me. So I'm just literally just cutting all these down. So they feel dry. Obviously they feel crunchy. I know they're dry because they're crunchy. There's some straw flowers here. You can't really see them, but they're peeking around the corner. And they're not quite dry. They've sort of got that greenish tinge about them. So these I'm just going to stand them up in the tub. And I'll probably have to find some more boxes for them because there's going to be a lot of material, but it's all good. Now I've left those up there. They're dry and ready, but I think I might have left enough space to hang up the new stuff. So it's all just stored in these plastic tubs, and they don't cost that much. So if I need to get some more of those, and there's a box, although there's always boxes turning up here, so you know I can just go and find some more boxes. I've put these little drumstick ones that are dried in jars with a bit of larkspur. Those dahlias are there. Those leftover straw flowers. So I don't know if I can really resurrect any of those because they are actually starting to lose their petals. So anyway, I'm going to tie these things up, and I might do it in the other space in here. And I'll show you, it's super easy. It's not rocket science how I do this. There's a fly in here the size of a bus. You probably can hear it. It's really annoying. And okay, so generally these are sitting in water. They've been sitting in water overnight. So you're going to dry them, but anyway, I tend to, well, with the straw flowers I set up with 10 stems, and that's probably about enough. But I have been finding, I haven't been counting my status when I've been bunching it up. Just been doing a bunch that's not too big, not too small, just right, that real Goldilocks thing going on. Well, so yeah, that's about what I've got. And to strip off any of the extra green. So yeah, they do say to strip off leaves and things. I mean, Status has got these funny little things. That doesn't tend to make too much difference with that. And then we've got string. I use the jute string. Some people use, they have little hooky wires hanging up. Now I'm just tying this sort of, oh good, I don't know, how much am I leaving? Maybe 4 inches off the bottom. Probably not a long enough piece actually. I need to cut it a little bit longer so then it can reach the end and hang up. I might actually trim those stems just a little. If you get shorter stems with your flowers too, you still can use them dried because you can wire them. So if you can be bothered doing that, yeah, that's another thing. So then I'll just take, not a very good example, but, and then I'll tie it up on my string. Usually I'll like tie all these up and then come in here and whack them up on here. Now I did have a single string. My husband put some little hooks at either end and then one here just for me. That was nice of him. And yeah, I had a single string, and then it did break eventually. So this is like a double layer of string. So it's double 2 pieces. And so far it's hanging on okay. If it breaks, it'll be annoying and we'll just do several more layers of it. But for the moment, it's all right. Yeah, and it's just a matter of tying it up, which is, you can laugh at me being short. Oh no, I can reach okay. Yeah, and I just do a double knot. And there we go. So everything you dry hanging upside down except for hydrangea, apparently. Although my mum she hung that upside down in her spare wardrobe and they dried fine. So according to the lady from Botanical Tales, the hydrangea is the one that you dry standing up in a vase with a little bit of water in the bottom. So try that. It probably, like it might just mean that the flower head looks more realistic. Maybe they flop down. I don't know. Mine look fine. So I'm not sure why standing up. Might want to do a bit of research into that. Yeah, so, and the dahlias, as I was saying, I was hanging them with an individual stem. So you might want to test out maybe a few together because you're using a lot of string. But Philippa from Just Dahlia, she has them, I think she puts little hooks of wire, and then she has them hanging through her entire house. So you've got to look at her Instagram because, and actually she was on Gardener's World in England, that her whole house, the ceiling, all the rooms, the bathroom and everything is just full of all these dahlias, just the heads at about, wow, it looks amazing, like a rainbow as they all dry out. So look, that's as simple as it gets. Be interesting to see what, I don't know how many stems of the amaranth I'd hang up together. They are bunched up now in 5s and they're quite thick stems, so it's sort of the thickness of things. You don't want it too big because you want everything to dry out properly, and you don't want things to mold on the inside, so that's why you do need a dry environment. So that's, yeah. The other thing, anything else about dried flowers? Not too much that actually I have experience with, because as I said, like, I'm not a big dried flower person. There's a place, no, I don't know what country she's in, but the Wreath Room, she's got a book. Check out her Instagram. There's actually a lady that does a lot fairly locally. She's Allenby Blooms, Allenby Blossoms. Oh, I can't remember her. Oh, sorry. She's great. She does lots of dried flowers too. But they're just something that that people want, and I'm finding that, yeah, $30 price point worked okay. So give it a go. Really easy. Really, really simple. I'm just going to work on my bouquet making abilities with dried flowers, because you can do lots with them. I do have some little straw flower heads that I was actually thinking about getting some thread, needle and thread, and then threading them together and having like a little garland, just as a decoration. You know, you can make wreaths with it. I've actually got one on my back door over there, and wreath base and some straw flowers on it. It actually needs touching up, so I might use some of my status and pull those straw flowers off and make something new just for my door, just for fun. But yeah, they're really worthwhile. Anyway, I hope you learned something. Maybe I learned something how to do this. I'm about to learn something and see how well this amaranth ties up. Yeah, just as long as it's not too bulky, because you just want it to dry properly. But it'd be interesting to see with this how if the seeds, because I've never collected seeds off amaranth. Oh no, I have collected seeds off amaranth. All the hot chili was the one I collected from last season, so I never bought any of that in. So that's a really good one. It's fascinating. It still reminds me of Mr. Snuffleupagus. Anyway, I'll catch up with you later. Bye.